Hi. So I'm Ross Martin. I come from Viacom. Thanks for having me here today. Let's see if this is working. How do we go to the next slide? I wasn't able to use this thing. Is this working? Oh, there it is. Looks like we're buffering. Man, that's kind of awkward, right? Like being at a conference at IAC and your thing is buffering. Did that make you uncomfortable? Was that kind of awkward? It was awkward for me. Why would I do that? And why would it be so awkward? It's because we're moving so damn fast. We can't wait. We can't wait for things to start or even for things to anticipate when we need them to start. And it's not that we're just going so fast. It's that we're literally beginning to compress time and space. We're compressing the time and space between a good idea and a better one, between a thriving company and a dead one, between success and failure and redemption, and then, uh-oh. Do people not recognize him? Come on. Okay. The velocity of culture is forcing existential questions about who we are. What are we here to do? What are we the best in the world at? What does the universe need from us? And it's really confusing things, right? So carbonated soft drink companies are beginning to look like media companies. Media companies are starting to look like creative agencies. Creative agencies are starting to look like venture capitalists. Venture capitalists turned unconference organizers are beginning to look like global celebrities. Yossi Vardi. So all of that's really interesting to us, people like us in this room. That's why we have events like this. We talk about what's changing and why it matters. But consumers don't really care about this stuff. They just see this, the Apple Store, and they see the best customer service they've ever had. And then they look at Target and they see the designer clothes at the prices they can afford, or at Nike, as you just heard, they see products that are designed to help them become better versions of themselves. Or at Warby Parker, they see a company they're dying to work for. Turns out, we're not competing against who we once thought, because in an accelerated world, our competitive set is infinite. We're compared not just to those in our industry, but to the best experiences in the lives of our consumers. We're expected to have customer service as good as Apple's, to deliver the same premium value at low cost that Target does, to be as behind consumers as Nike is, and to be as super fun to work at as Warby Parker. Our phones are expected to know us better than we know ourselves. And man, that is freaking hard. God forbid you have that buffering sign happen when you're at IAC, at DLD, in front of people like you. That would be really scary. So who are we going to blame for all this? I say we do what everybody else is doing, and we blame the millennials. Raise your hand if you're a millennial. Nice to see you. Raise your hand if you own one. So here's what we can all agree on. They're the largest generation in American history. They're 40% bigger than my generation, Gen X. They're the most diverse, overeducated, underemployed generation of all time. And to many of you, millennials are just a huge pain in the ass. So today, I'm happy to announce this millennial complaint hotline. You can really call it. This is the debut. I'm launching it here at DLD. You can call and complain about the millennials if you want. Ask most marketers what they know about millennials, and you're going to get something like this.
Have you had it with no one taking selfies in your mirrors? Are you sick of never being able to give out all your participation trophies? Is your Facebook, skateboard, Instagram megabytes? Then you need a millennial.
Hi, I'm Leslie Masters, and this is a millennial. The millennial is the latest and greatest cultural demographic, and it's been improved in every way. Start with an extreme addiction to social media. We hired a professional bodybuilder to pry a phone out of a millennial's hand. But he can't do it. Think that's all? Well, it's not, dummy. Each millennial is also a raging narcissist.
That's me.
Me.
Me and Kanye.
Every millennial comes with unrealistic career goals.
I'm planning on donating most of the proceeds from my organic crowdfunded digital startup bike shop that I haven't opened yet to buy shoes for DJs that don't have shoes.
And how do you actually intend to do that? And they're lazy.
Who do I talk to about my promotion? And can you talk to them for me? Thanks.
But don't just take our word for it. Listen to what the experts say.
Millennials.
Lazy, entitled, very narcissistic.
Millennials are voracious users of new technology.
Always checking Twitter, you're posting on Facebook.
Cell phones in their hands and MP3 players in their ears.
38% of this age group has a tattoo.
Hello, future! But wait, there's more! If you order now, you'll get a set of helicopter parents absolutely free.
Hey, dog. I just had a great chat with your boss.
Millennials, for the home, for the office, for the great outdoors. Order yours today.
Millennials available as long as supplies last. Must have Wi-Fi signal and constant praise. Millennials must not be reminded of crippling student debts or unrealistic career choices.
Sure. So the trouble is, if we rely, obviously, on shallow punditry like that, we're all dead. Here's a counter narrative. Millennials are a more evolved version of us. They're bionic. They're a more advanced species. They're native to the accelerated world, and they can see the future more clearly than we can. Why? Because they're freaking creating it. Media companies like Viacom should know. We were the first to feel it. And for us, this disruption started years ago. MTV's logo looked like this, and at some of our biggest networks, an entire generation, Gen X, had grown up and moved on. That's because millennials weren't seeing the image of themselves in our networks. So we had to ask that same old question: what does the universe need from us? For us, it meant radical reinvention. It meant not just of our marketing and our programming, but every area of our business. So we grabbed hold of our birthright and we dug in to get to know what was driving millennials, who they are, what they dream about, and what they wanted from us. MTV's president, Stephen Friedman, rebuilt the network as the autobiography of a new generation, getting behind our audience instead of in front of them, and making MTV a platform to amplify their voices. With Always On, which we announced last week, MTV's experimenting like mad again, now with real-time content, creating and responding to cultural moments within minutes. Communities of fans are the ones who are driving innovation at our biggest networks, for our biggest shows. Like this memorial platform that we launched, it was fan-inspired upon the death of a beloved character in our series Teen Wolf. And this is probably my favorite. Networks like Nickelodeon put the power of growing up and having fun back into the fingertips of kids. So far, kids have pushed that button, the do not touch button, over 165 million times. So millennials are sweeping through every industry, changing everything. And we were just the first to feel it. We looked around at our partners at Viacom and our brands and the businesses we work with in every consumer-facing category, and all are poised to experience the same disruption. Some seemed to know it was coming, others were preparing, some were already mid-upheaval, and others seemed wholly unaware of the coming wave. At Viacom, we run thousands of real-time experiments every minute of every day on thousands of platforms all around the world in 160 countries. That's why we have a visceral connection and a privileged link into the lives of our consumers. We thrive in the chaos and the disruption, so we're uniquely positioned to help our partners do the same. At Scratch, which we launched about 4 years ago, it's a creative SWAT team that channels the power of Viacom in new and surprising ways. So what we're doing is opening the API of our company, giving our clients and partners access to the expertise, the art, and the science behind our core businesses. We're using all the capabilities of our company, the things that drive content and hit shows, the content that our consumers are literally taking into the palms of their hands every day, to help our clients and partners win in their industries. A few years ago, we set out to understand the drivers of millennial brand preference and behavior. So to decode that, we did this study, the Millennial Disruption Index. 3 years, 15 categories, 73 brands, 200 interviews and conversations, and over 10,000 respondents. It was one of the most exhaustive studies we ever did. And we did it as a means of using this as a roadmap for where we should take our work at Scratch. First, we knew we had to tackle the auto industry, so we did so with General Motors. We knew we had to tackle the beverage industry, and we did so with Pepsi and Dr. Pepper Snapple. We partnered with the Guggenheim Museum to begin reimagining what a fine arts institution could look like today. And we've even used these insights in our creative force to affect a different kind of change for Donors Choose, for St. Jude Children's Hospital, and the Malala Fund, to name a few. We're pointing Scratch and Viacom at the greatest challenges and opportunities that we can find. And millennials are the ones showing us true north. Next, of all the categories that we've studied, financial services stands out as the most ripe for disruption at the hands of millennials. We believe that soon, financial services is going to change exponentially. The brands and products we know today will be reinvented or they'll disappear. Not because they're hated or mistrusted, but because they're becoming irrelevant. 2/3 of millennials believe that in the next 5 years, the way we access our money will be totally different. They believe that innovation's coming not from financial services companies, but from the outside. A full third believe that they won't even need a bank at all. So we're working today with the biggest financial institutions in the world, and they're beginning to use the power of Viacom and its connection with youth to help them transform and win. It's helping banks remember that they're not just selling credit, they're empowering human endeavor. That's quite a new way to think about a media company like Viacom, about how to use its power and its potential, to use our capabilities in such new and in surprising ways, and to be invited into companies like these to help answer some of the biggest questions in the world. That could never happen without a visceral connection with our consumers and without radical audience intimacy. Change, it turns out, is the only constant, and we're just getting started. Thanks so much for having me.
All right, hello from the future. Next up, we have David Sable, who's been the CEO of Young and Rubicam since February of 2011. Over the past 30 years, he's worked at a variety of different advertising agencies, including Wells, Rich Green, Miller Advertising, Burson Marsteller, and Conan Wolf. David blogs in his weekly ramble. He writes for the Huffington Post and has been listed as a LinkedIn influencer. David's the chair of UNICEF's New York board and was named one of Fast Company's 10 most generous people in marketing and advertising.
Thank you. Can I have this? Thank you very much. So, first of all, I own 2 millennials, so it's a little bit scary. And when they tell you you've been 30 years in the business, you can figure out how old I am, so that makes me even scarier. First, just a quick shout out to Steffi and Yossi. It's great to be here in New York. I usually participate in Germany, so it's kind of cool to be in my own city for DLD, so thank you, and thank you all for coming. I'm going to talk about Generation World. I'm going to take a slightly different view of segmentation today, of the audience, of young people, because the fact of the matter is that if we don't understand that finding people in the digital world is different than it was in the non-digital world, we're just misunderstanding what's happening. So let me explain. The real question, can we go back one? Sorry. Can you back me up? Great. So the first question is, who the hell are we? How many people recognize themselves in more than one category here? I for sure do, because I can tell you, when you start looking at it, I am a grandparent, but I'm also a big gamer. And definitely I'm a baby boomer, sort of at the end part of it, but I'm a baby boomer. I'm an empty nester, more or less, although I can tell you that when you start having grandchildren, you don't become an empty nester, you start re-nesting again, which is a great thing. But the problem is, we are all of these things and probably more. Yet, we still today try to use these tags to identify audience. So in this world, we're still using old language, old segmentation, old thinking to figure out who we're really trying to talk to. So who the hell are we? So how many of you have checked out your Google profile? Raise your hands. Not many. How many of you, keep your hands up, how many of you with your hands up have found that the profile is accurate? Very few. So what happened was that the day that Google went live with this, I get a call from Bloomberg, not the mayor, the former mayor, but the news service. And they said, go check your profile, because we've all checked it, and not one person here has a profile that's accurate. So I went to check it, and essentially it says, no demographic categories are associated with your ad preferences so far. Now, who here is ready to bet that when they sell my data, that they append this notion to the people that they're selling it to? I doubt it. So here is the company that we're all scared of that knows every single thing about us, and frankly doesn't have a freaking clue. They don't know who I am. They don't know how to find me. They know nothing at all about me. Now, why is that? How come they don't know anything about me? Because the fact is that appearances can be deceiving. In today's world, we can be many things. I can be CEO of the company in 1 minute. I'm a world traveler. I'm also a grandfather. I'm a gamer. I like fashion. So when you put that all together, and that's in one session online, it's no wonder they don't know who I am, because in each one of those personas, if you will, I am different, but at the end of the day, I'm still me. So the problem is, if you try to sell me some fashion item when I'm on my gamer mode, don't think you'd have that big a chance. Same the reverse. So the problem is that when we look at it, we're still using old thinking. So the truth is, when a kid like this says, you know, I really want to drive a Dodge Ram because it's a safe, reliable, and well-built, and this comes from actual focus groups, right? Because that's what they say. What they really want to say is, damn, I can't wait to get in that thing and just be badass. And the problem is people aren't telling us the truth. You don't tell the truth. I don't tell the truth. It's not that we do it on purpose. It's just because in our personas, we are so many things. So how do we define ourselves? So one of the things that we found in doing this study called Generation World was there's a fluidity of identity. People do not want to be identified across age groups. They don't want to be identified necessarily gender specific or even across geographies. Because you could be in Bombay or Brooklyn, I could be in Bombay or Brooklyn, you wouldn't know. And it really wouldn't make much of a difference. It's okay to be a lot of different things at a lot of different times. So I can be all of those things and more. I have the permission to do it. It wasn't always so. I expect you to understand that I'm multidimensional. I expect you to understand that I'm not just one person. And most of us have zero tolerance today for closed-minded. So here's the new consumer psyche, right? Here's the way to look at it. It amazes me that people still talk about microtrends. Now, microtrends was a concept that was created, anybody remember, during Bill Clinton's first campaign? And what was the first identifiable microtrend? Anybody remember? Soccer moms. Soccer moms. Now, why a soccer mom? It was a brilliant concept, right? Because they needed a new audience. So who was a soccer mom? Go back to the mid-90s when he ran for the first time. Soccer wasn't an urban game, it was a suburban game. Who played soccer? Not the children of Republicans. Trust me. It was the children of Democrats. They were probably slightly better educated, better demographic, right? More money, yada, yada, yada. Perfect for liberal Democrats. A perfect Clinton bullseye. And it was. And we used that term, microtrends. It was brilliant. But today we live in a nanotrend world, right? Because any one of you, all of us, in the course of 10 minutes online can be those many things. So we've gone from this inner uniformity to inner diversity. So where once I was happy to be identified as a soccer mom, if that's who I was, today I don't want to be a soccer mom all the time. When I am, that's fine, and talk to me that way. But when I'm not, don't. Because you won't be able to sell me anything. So generation world, right? This is a concept. We believe this is true. It's a generation of consumers who do not define themselves by age or demographic. They share more in common with people around the world than their own next-door neighbor. And these are the people who are influencing the way we think, the way we shop, and they will influence the way we behave in the future. So when I talk about demographics, whether I'm talking about older people or younger people, I only talk about generation world, because if we don't understand that today's segmentation crosses all these barriers, we're missing the point. There we go. So some of the new unifiers, right? We have gone through This is part of our study. This is US, Brazil, and China. 60% of these people are mobile. Now, what do they think, though? They don't think mobile means I'm carrying a smartphone. They think people should be free to live, work, and marry however they want. They believe in empowerment, right? It's up to themselves. And again, this crosses all age groups. It's up to themselves to get what they want out of life. They're ageless. They are not defined by age. And they are all see themselves, no matter what age they are, as evolving, as pieces of work. Martha Stewart is one of the great examples of this. Do you know that Martha Stewart, who most people would tell you has sort of gone away, faded into oblivion, wrong. She is the darling of the young entrepreneur set. And again, entrepreneurs here defined not as the Silicon Valley types that we all tend to worship, but those really smart kids who are opening up all those beautiful little artisanal stores all over the world and doing amazing things. And she has become their goddess. American Apparel, here's another one. This is one of my favorites, right? So American Apparel, the first time I went in, my daughter took me when she was 18. So that made me significantly younger. She said, Daddy, I want to buy you a hoodie, which was code for Daddy, I want you to buy me 3 or 4 hoodies. So I went in with her, and I thought, wow, this is a cool store. I started to buy. Well, American Apparel noticed that people like me were buying there as well. So from the left, or your right, is who you would normally associate with American Apparel. The woman to your left, the woman to your right, is in fact one of their newest models. I love this picture. And the one in the middle, the Hasidic hipster from Brooklyn, has recently been hired by them to be a model as well. So Generation World, look at what they cross and look what they're trying to understand. It's brilliant. This is another one that I love. So this is McDonald's, right? McDonald's believed that the world was about microtrends, right? That everything was about, if you wanted to be a brand, you needed to be the same every place you were. You needed to do everything the same way. That was how you had to be, right? So it was all the same hamburger. The biggest issue was, how do I find the same meat? How do I find the same potato for the same consistency? Well, guess what? Recently, only about a year ago, did they discover that half the population, at least of India, doesn't eat meat. That was pretty brilliant, right? So they came out with the McVeggie. I love that one. My personal favorite is the falafel burger in Saudi Arabia. Now, when you look at that, it's still McDonald's, but they figured it out. They got it. And the beauty of that is that when you look at this study, this is our Y&R BAV, Brand Asset Evaluator. You can go online. You can find it at YR.com. But here's what's changed in 20 years. When you look at the graph in 1993, their brand was all over the place on a global basis. If you look at it today, look how it's clustered, because they figured it out. They understood that it's about nanotrends. It's not about the microtrend. Here's another great one, Gap. This is work that we did. We launched Gap recently in China. That's Philippe Cousteau of the Cousteau family. She's a local actress, very famous, a young woman. She's beautiful, she's smart, and she's into ecology. So the brilliance of this was Generation World, the East and the West together, age together, but based on shared values and not on any one particular demographic issue. It was the biggest hit. Gap was, and you can look this up, became the brand of the year in China last year. It was the biggest launch in the country. So Generation World, defined not by demographics, but by a shared mindset. It's not what people say, it's what they do. That is really important, right? It's what they do. Whatever your age, it's a group that embraces conflict. Generation World embraces conflict no matter what age you are. It makes no difference. So when you talk to kids, you've got to think about that parents are listening, older people listen. When you talk to older people, you have to think that kids are listening. And finally, it's about complexity. And I'll leave you with one last thought. Does anybody know what this is? Anyone want to take a guess? Someone? Stop the conversation. I think she wants me off the stage. No, I was like, no. This is very simple, right? This is a 3-year-old and an 80-year-old turning on their iPhone. It's the first time in the history of the world, in my opinion, I'm making this up, but I think it's true. It's the first time in the history of the world that a 3-year-old and an 80-year-old can use an important tool of life in exactly the same way. And if that doesn't make the final case for Generation World, then I don't know what does. Thank you all very much.
So I think for our first question, we just want to sort of bring David and Christiana into the fold and see whether or not they agree or disagree with sort of David Sable's proposition that demographics aren't really useful anymore in terms of defining markets. Do you see that as true?
I'm in a very hot spot here because I'm on the board of this company and I'm really related to the holding of that company there. So whatever I see, then it gets today. This company is going on with result and the other one is investing. So whatever I say has a big impact. I'm kidding. I was saying how lucky I am that I have this informal access in this wealth of knowledge, because I think what it's important today, in addition of these analyses that are based on emotion and interpretation of society, is this amazing amount of data that we have, but data on its own is like really not useful. So the only way you can redesign your organization or your strategies to tap into this demographic is if you analyze or understand this data. And so I feel really, really fortunate that I can tap into this two amazing bank of knowledge. What I would say on both sides is that, so Ross said that we need to be faster. So I'm always faster, except today I'm a bit low on energy, but so I go beyond the millennial. There is this new generation. There is a competition out there to name it. I think they call it Generation Z. And since I'm a grandmother of 7, I have a lot of those around, and I will come up with a name for them. So I will look at that generation too, because it's the one coming up, and actually you guys are quite old for them, so tough luck. And then on David, just one thing. Before you do this on the iPhone, you have to click on top and switch it off, and then the sliding appears. Sorry, that's it.
So David, Arabov, do you have any?
So I actually agree with both of them. I'll go with what David said first. I believe you cannot put people into demographics anymore or bundle them up as they used to, as you showed. The reason is because everybody has many different qualities. Everybody's a different person. Everybody thinks in different ways. And also, we live in an era where obviously it's the social era, and everybody's trying to figure out. And the beauty of it is the average Facebook user has 500 friends. And right now, your product really has to sell itself. And when a product does sell itself, that's when word-of-mouth marketing on social media works best. And all your different 500 friends are all not the same people. You can't say, hey, if he has 500 friends, all his 500 friends are hipsters, or all of them are this. They're all different people. So the reason why there really is no more one demographic is because when one person is endorsing a product by word of mouth on Facebook, which is probably the greatest way to endorse a product because that's when the product's actually sold itself, then there's 499 other people that are completely different but are trusting their friend, quote unquote, into looking into that product. So I completely agree. You cannot bundle people anymore. I think what brands and companies have to do is just focus on creating a great product that will sell itself, and then everything else will come naturally with it. And I agree with Ross as well. Brands and companies have to be thinking forward right now, and not trying to bombard younger people or using old strategies that they've used for the past 30 years and thinking it's going to work. It's a completely different world out there, and the companies that do the best right now are the ones that are trying different things and not afraid to fail, and that's the beauty of it. So that is the world we live in.
I think a follow-up question to that is that if we're talking about youth that isn't really tied to a specific age, or global youth that isn't really tied to a specific location, are we just kind of expanding the term to a point where it encompasses like all of humanity?
I mean, at this point, you kind of have to now. People have friends in different countries that have internet but don't have cell phones. A great example of a company that really didn't do what it needed to do is when Time Warner got bought by Comcast. When Comcast bought Time Warner, the reason they did that is because Time Warner owns all the power lines across most of the major cities. But a smarter move by Comcast would have been to buy Netflix, because that's what all the young people are watching, not buy the internet provider and try to slow it down for them, or make Netflix pay more, which would jack up the price and keep cable up there. So you have to think on a global scale right now, because the internet, people have internet where they don't have cable or where they don't have cell phone reception, and it's a combined universe right now.
And can I build on that? I think that you said something, people have internet. Well, I think in the globalized world where we see cosmopolitan trends rather than only the vertical, and then we see the nano, inequality is a big deal. So inequality of access is a big deal. And that's the only, or one of the discriminators that you see across the world. It's like you don't have the McDonald's, then you cannot reach me. But at times, you may have the mobile phone, but you may not have that internet access that allow you that richness of data. So I go back to what you were asking, whether we're all human beings, and maybe I come across a little bit holistic and granola, but I think so. And if you look at quantum mechanics and what's going on in that part of the science, you see that we're all one and we're all connected. So if you're using emotion to talk to the humankind, most probably you're getting also Generation X and the millennial. That's, again, it's a big granola as an approach.
You see, let's just take a next look at how it works, right? So obviously there's certain things that are targeted towards a particular audience as an end user, right? So toys that are targeted to children, but parents buy toys, right? So it's always been that way. Fashion has always been brilliant, right? Because the best fashion designers have always understood, like if you take a look at even today, just pick up Vogue or Cosmo or GQ or whatever, look at the ages of most of the models, and then figure out and the clothes they're wearing, and figure out who actually buys it, right? So we've always understood that you bracket, right? So bracketing's always been brilliant. Word of mouth is what we do as human beings. Like every product in the history of the world, I mean, since the first caveman sold the first wheel to the guy next door, it's always been word of mouth. It's been the driver. The beauty of today is that I've got Facebook and I have Twitter. I have all these other ways that I have to amplify that message, and my circle is kind of big. And I think that was like a really important point, because there is almost nobody, who has a homogenous group of friends. Now, having said that, it's becoming a little bit different, because people of my generation who were first users of Facebook, like when we started, right, it was like, oh my God, Jeff Scoble has 50 million friends on Facebook, because that was the game, right? Who had the most friends? The younger people today, it's exactly the opposite, because they want a small circle of friends. So in fact, their grouping is much more homogenous from that point of view. But they're still influenced out in the market by many people, because they're reading the tweets and they're watching the feeds and they're doing all these other things. And we know on MTV, we know on HBO, we know, and again, I don't look at these as channels, I look at them as creators of content, because I can watch that content in 100 different places today. And so we know that lots of different people of different ages are watching all that content. So the truth is it totally universal? Yeah, in a way, but I think that's just a cynical way of looking at it. You have to just understand that the truth is we are all influenced by everything that we see around us. The Lego movie is a great example. How many people here saw the Lego movie? Put your hands up. Hi, 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 hi. So what's great about the Lego movie and why everybody's saying, oh my God, what a success, this is such a surprise, because everybody's watching it. And they're not just going with their kids and their grandkids. There are older people who are going on their own. There are teenagers who are going to watch it. There are tweens who are seeing it. And then there are people like me who do take their grandkids. It's all, but it's beautiful, because you sit there in an audience that is so mixed, and so it's generation world. And I think that is what's driving where we're going today.
To try and answer your question about millennials, so first of all, it's impossible to talk about millennials. It's so reductive as soon as you say one word. It's a generation of more than 84 million people. We've tried to divide them into two, wave one and wave two. And the more you break it down, the more confusing it gets. So this is a really big group of people to say any one thing about. At the same time, this generation, the largest, and I'm not a demographer, is millennializing every generation that's come before. Right, so let's just talk about millennials as consumers and the millennial consumer experience. They've raised the bar for every single brand in every single category, which is why I said that we're not competing against brands only in our category. They've changed your expectation, no matter how old you are, of customer service, of design, of how long your product should last and how much it should cost, of how fast it should iterate and how well it should get to know you. And those expectations are not just millennial expectations, they're all of our expectations today, and they're getting harder and harder to meet. No matter what brand you are and no matter what category you're performing in, it's almost impossible to keep up, let alone stay ahead. And as media companies and agencies, we feel that first. That's our job to know it and anticipate it. But everybody in this room and everybody in the building and everybody out there is feeling the same thing now.
Would you say that the difficulty is mainly rooted in speed, or is it kind of about a perception of a brand's level of like authenticity or communication?
Oh, it's both and many other things. So,
Yeah, I think that's it.
I guess I wonder, since everyone sort of is bringing up technology as the big driver behind all these confluences, are there any other trends that you see like driving these forces beyond just the expansion of the internet and technology in general?
Oh yeah, great question. So the truth of the matter is that technology creates efficiency, right? Technology in and of itself is dumb. There's nothing there, right? And that's part of the problem of our world. I call it digibabble. You know, just that nonsense that people spout about as if there's some magic, you know, Harry Potter thing going on around technology. The problem is what you put in it. Now, it occurred to me when you were talking about internet access and mobile. So if you look around the world, like we're very jaded, right? Because we're sitting here in New York, we're in this amazing place. Everybody's got, you know, an iPhone or some kind of smartphone. Everybody's got a tablet. Everybody's got something they're playing with. We're all going to go home and watch something streaming through Netflix or Amazon or whatever, and we're going to talk about being cut off from cable, but we're really just moving the cable someplace else, yada, 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 yada. But most of the world doesn't have that, right? So most of the world doesn't have that, nor do they fit into any of the categories that we've talked about. So when you look at, you figure, what's the number, where's Liana? What's the number, 60%, 80% of phones shipped are not smartphones? 60% of the phones shipped around the world are not smartphones. In other words, they don't do any of the things that we assume that everybody in the world just kind of does, right? So they don't have any apps, and they can't play Angry Bird or anything that's really important in life like that, right? They can't do. So those people, by the way, who have those phones, that's survival. They need those phones to survive. So in India, there are huge programs going on now, and in China, around how do I take dumb phones and use texting and just the basics to provide services to these people. And it's not the kids who have the phone sharing goofy pictures. It's the adults who need to know what the price of rice is so that they can get to the right market in the morning, or to know that the dam is going to release its water so they don't have to sit 6 hours at a tap. And so it is technology, but it's also not technology because the need is driven by basic human necessity. And in our case, I don't think it is driven by necessity. It's driven by because we're having a great time. And I think that's the difference. And I think, and I've written a lot about this, when we understand that necessity is a bigger driver than just having fun, I think that we're really going to take advantage of the digital world, which we have not done yet, in my opinion.
One of the things I haven't heard talked about today at this at DLD is the changing of the American workforce. And I don't just mean the size of the workforce, our GDP. I'm talking about like what it's like to come to work as a young person or someone who manages young people. And it's radically different than ever before. Here's why. Because the job of growing up hasn't changed, but the forces acting upon young people today are radically different than ever before. And it's changed parenting styles. So those young people that are entering your workforce that seem really entitled, that don't understand why you need them to come in at 8 a.m. and sit there instead of with natural light.
I don't understand either, by the way.
Right?
I can explain. I can explain.
But here's why that's changing, right? And millennials are flooding our workforce, right? So that is a huge reality, right? So you're seeing the companies that we're talking about, all the brands changing because they're being run by millennials now, who dominate the workforce. So it's important to understand what millennials who work for you want. These are kids who grew up coming in 11th place and getting a trophy for it, who were taught to believe they would be special and they would achieve their life goals because they were unique. And their potential is literally killing them. They were taught to believe they would be here, but they're all the way back here, and they're blaming themselves for that. So that's something that that's not entitlement. That is the feeling of unrealized potential. And the brands that get that are getting behind them and helping them to achieve.
So I can comment on what you just said. At Elite Daily, it's a relatively young company. We have about over 50 employees, and most of the employees' age is between 18 and 25 years old. So we're dealing with the heart of millennials. And it's, our company culture is very, very different from any corporate style culture or anything like that. We don't really bound ourselves by too many rules. We don't really say, hey, you have to sit there and you have to do this all day long and that's it. We don't even give specific goals or anything like that. What we found really works best is when you give a person something that they actually want to do and enjoy doing, and you give them the range to be creative and have the most fun within doing it, that is when they perform the best. So that is really the way we've ran the company to date. And we've seen success because we've gone by the FUBU model, for us, by us. So creating content for us and by us. And that's what has allowed the product to sell itself. And our content has been shared through social networks. That's mostly how we got it out there. And that's, you can't put a gun to somebody's head and tell them to share something. And the beauty of it was the product and the content did sell itself because the people behind it were able to really put what they wanted to put into it. So when it comes to millennial office space and all that stuff, I'd say the best route to go is to throw away the rule book of office space and really attack it from a more fun perspective and a more open perspective than one that's closed off and it's like, hey, this is what you have to do, 9 to 5, be miserable and get out of here.
Can I add like a comment from a global, local organization, which is the World Economic Forum, so Swiss German, but with world appeal. We introduce a next generation within and outside of our organization. And the biggest challenge was control. Meaning, being a German-Swiss organization by DNA, we were used to control a lot of things. And once you open up internally, because we have a fellowship program, so we have top-line talent coming, below 30 working with us. Then we have the young global leader, they go from 30 to 40. Then we have the shapers, they're 20 to 30. Then we have the global growth company. This is a huge amount of innovation within and from the outside, but also disruption that comes in. These people are all arrogant, in our terms, arrogant, but I love arrogance at that age. I love it. I think if you don't have it, you don't go anywhere. But you have to be less control freak if you are the management. And as you said, you have to be much more horizontal, and you also have to have that design of the organization, which, I'm sorry, I connect and I jump from one thing to the other because I love to be multipolar, like you said, and schizophrenic. So if you look at the design of an organization, whether you want to reach global through local and local through global, or whether you want to reach the innovation outside with your innovation inside, you cannot have something that is set in stone. People need to be able to regroup around an objective, and the leadership needs to be fluid, I think. Meaning, if I lead today in this particular horizontal achievement, because we need to go left, and I'm the expert in left, we do it. But next day we need to go right, I'm not the one. And I think it's very difficult for organizations, small or big, to keep this fluidity. Google, I think, I've been told, reorganize every 8 months, and people don't even know their job title. So for those who come from a different, I don't even want to call it generation, because I'm a Peter Pan, so I don't like that. But whoever comes from a different mindset will find it very hard to function, not only with the millennial, but with the next wave of. And another thing that I think motivate me, or my Peter Pan in me, motivate human beings, I think, but motivates younger generation, it's what I've heard. I'm stealing this term. I cannot tell you where I listened to it the first time. I'm so sorry. I used to be a journalist, so I'll find the source and post it somewhere. Hybrid activism, meaning all of us wants to give back, wants to be involved, wants to feel good. And if your organization has a higher goal than just producing a product and selling it, and most probably you are in a better place from a motivational point of view. Then, of course, you have to have incentive matrix that incentive the person and incentive the teamwork of these clouds that keep configuring according to the objective, which usually should be set by the outside, not the inside. Sorry.
I do think a Viacom board member just told me it's okay to go back and break all the rules in the company. So just for the record.
I just tweeted it to Philippe. Don't worry. So, but just coming back to the point that was made, right? So you have to be flexible. You have to be, if people are going right and you're the guy who doesn't know how to go right, but you have to know how to do it. But you see, even with office space, so we just took a company that sat for 87 years in the same building, 87 years, an iconic building, 285 Madison Avenue, defined Madison Avenue. For those of you who watch Mad Men, which I don't because it's too scary, but if we sat in that building in in office space, and people would count tiles to see how big their offices was. We've gone to a completely open office plan. No offices, not one. Lots of configurable space, lots of fluidity, lots of ability. And the amazing thing was that we didn't lose 5 minutes of where people moved from one to the other. But because I think we live in this more fluid generation world kind of a place where people do influence each other. It doesn't make a difference if you're older or younger. We do influence each other in the positive, that we just slid right into it. And it's amazing. You're all invited to visit me if you'd like, 3 Columbus Circle. But it is amazing space, and just for that very reason.
That's how our office space is set up. It's just two big open rooms, actually.
Can we ask some question to Keola, actually? Sorry, because, I mean, we're talking about you, but we're all expressing judgment. I was looking at your study, and you did recently a research on anxiety, one on freedom, one on patience, and one on visibility. These are all, like, not only millennial trend, or, like, young generation, whatever you want to segment this. What did you find as a connector of all this research that would be relevant for us to learn?
Well, it works now. Well, we do trend forecasting that isn't necessarily geared towards any age group. We aren't like a youth marketing or a youth trend analysis. What we were looking at was just things that were starting to affect our lives. So for instance, the third one was we came up with the brand anxiety matrix because we were all kind of like feeling really stressed out and anxious and not really knowing what the source of this anxiety was. And our last report, which was a report on freedom and ended up being more about youth and the idea of like an ageless youth, ended up being more a question of how people individuate themselves. So these things aren't necessarily, threads in as much as they are like large factors that just affect our, being in the world or being as consumers as well.
I mean, K-Hole is also fundamentally a literary project. We all have backgrounds in the arts and in writing, and we really take to heart the idea that our individual experiences can be extrapolated and looked at in a way that can have implications for society and the world at large. So I think like that's really what tethers all the different ideas together, is how we see sort of the semantics of these different larger ideas shifting around us and trying to explain how that's happening to everyone else.
I think we hit our time.
With our time. I only have one comment I want to make on the previous panel about fashion, which is relevant to this. I don't know if you have heard that the former CEO of Burberry's with the creative director talking together, but I think there is one thing that they always mention that it's relevant, and it's not only the apparel that you sell, but the experience that you create in the retail space that has to be totally consistent with digital, meaning the most challenging part, for example, is the checkout at the cashier, because when you do it online, if you are this part of generation, it's really fast, but when you do it in a real shop, there are still long lines. So I just wanted to add that because I think it's very relevant to the marketing, to the global, but it's also relevant to what we were discussing before about the digital and new fashion. I think that your product and the experience that you provide in selling the product has to be very consistent.
Right. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you all.